and we welcome Dr. Ofer Grosbard, a clinical psychologist. Thank you so much for joining us, so much to discuss this trauma of captivity, the trauma of waiting, the trauma of not knowing, and what we're talking about right now, this hideous, terrifying release earlier on in the day, unimaginable ordeal for Agam, Yehud, and Gadi. Your sense of some of the challenges that lie ahead as they get their medical and psychological assessments.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. Sorry. I think the first interesting thing in this story is a conflict between emotion and rational way of thinking concerning the release of the hostages. You know, people in Israel were very emotional about this release, but from the other side, each one of us, of the Israelis, has a conflict inside himself, because we know the price of this release. Recently, we heard that 80% of these terrorists are going back to terror, and it's very interesting to see that in the conflict between emotion and rational way of thinking, as Freud said, the big decisions are taken according to emotions. You know, we decide to get married according to our emotions. We choose occupation according to our emotions. But small decisions, like where to buy a bottle of milk, you know, I make all the calculation where it's convenient. So I'm not surprised that at the end, the hostages are released according to our emotions, although there are very rational and thoughts that the price is very high, very, very high, from different reasons. The soldiers that were killed and might be killed in the future, and Yahya Sinwar was released in Shalit deal, and so on. So it's interesting to see that the emotions won. Now, the challenge of the hostages is very big. You know, from one side there is guilt feelings of those who were released, and from the other side a lot of envy of those who didn't release or didn't yet release. The hostages and their families. Think about guilt feelings first of all of what we call survival guilt, the guilt that you are alive. Just this is and your friends might be dead. So this is the first thing they have to overcome and to deal with it, usually in psychotherapy. And then the guilt concerning those who remain there. And then the guilt concerning to the families that work so hard to release them. And then to the people of Israel that that also went to the demonstrations and so on. So I can imagine a hostage go in the street and people know him or her, and he is not a private person anymore. And you know, and the challenge is to balance those emotions from the depression in the two tunnels of Hamas to the euphoria of few days now after she or he are released. And then again, no one deal with you. And you have to go back to your life a year and a half ago and to start on from the place you left. So it's a huge challenge, all those emotions, all those swing of emotion. It's something totally not easy, and not to talk about other things that you have to work through.
Right.
I think.
Certainly a long road ahead in terms of recovery. No doubt, though, when you see those images of, for example, Agam Berger surrounded by her family, reunited with her parents, reunited with her violin, she's a beautiful musician, reunited with her twin sister, one cannot help but feel that being surrounded by your loved ones, knowing that you are safe again, knowing that the nation is rejoicing in your return, is part of that road to recovery, not only for each individual, but potentially for the nation as well, to understand that this is what keeps the nation ticking: unity, the family, resilience, and standing together. I'd like your take on Agam specifically as we look at these pictures of her with her parents, because just a few hours ago, Doctor, she was made to stand in front of armed, masked terrorists cheering Palestinian civilians on her own, and she looked strong and resilient, and no doubt she was terrified. Talk to us about that ordeal at the end of all this time in captivity, knowing she's about to come home. That's what she had to endure alone.
Yeah, I guess in such a moment, a person try to repress, all the fears. And I think she knows it's a kind of a show. She knows it. She knows Hamas very well after a year and a half in the tunnels of Hamas. And I'm not surprised if she expected something like this. After you go so much during a year and a half, I think it's not a big. So I think we are more shocked by it than Agam, I think. But of course, it's not an easy experience at all. And it's very important the way, in any trauma, it's very important the way you got into the trauma, how many ego forces you have before the trauma. This is the chance for let's say something about the chances for rehabilitation. But she looks strong and she looks happy, and what you said is very right. The people of Israel and the family are very important for their rehabilitation. We know it. So it's not. She sees. Everyone is very happy, and it makes her calm down her guilt feelings and other things, and yeah. So I think it was easier for her than for us to see it.
Well, it certainly was terrifying indeed. And now to have that contrast and see her with her parents, that is just the medicine, so to speak, that I imagine everyone coming home would need. As you say, a long road ahead. The nation will be supporting every single one of the hostages. May they all come home. Dr. Ofer Grosbard, thank you very much for being with us. Thank you. Appreciate your insights. Thank you.